Oh, hello there. I didn't see you walk in. I was just playing Claude Debussy's Arabesque No. 1 on my Super Mario World steel drum patch, as I am wont to do. So it is usually around this point where I start getting very sick of hearing this short tiny loop over and over again. So I am going to start working on extending what we have here into something that starts to resemble an actual song a little bit more. So for instance, I want just this at first. And then after that, this can come in, so I'm going to Control C, Control V. Actually, a better way to do it is just highlight these things and press Control B, and it just copies it like right after that. So then we go from this into this. Also, a very good thing to do is to pan your different tracks a little bit. So like for example, that sounds a little bit crowded, so I'm going to take my 3x osc thing and pan it to the left, say 15%. Because if you go all the way over here, then like your ear just starts to hurt, so I usually, I mean it depends on the mix, but right around here for this is probably good, maybe 10%. And you can just hear the difference between this and how it was before. 20%, yeah, that sounds about good. Of course, all of this will be tweaked much more finely later on, but for now we're just getting a general feel of it. And this, like, it lets you hear both this and the steel drum as they're separate things. They don't, like, crowd each other up. However, now, if you look right here, you see how the left thing is generally peaking higher than the right? You can also see it up here. That's because we now have more sound in the left ear than the right, and you're usually going to want to balance that out with something. And we are probably going to be adding more instruments later on, but for now, just in case we don't, I'm just going to take this piano, and this might be a bad idea, but I'm going to pan it to the right a little bit more, say around here, well, 20% too, just for now. You hear the difference? And the steel drum is front and center. It might be a better idea to reset this and take the steel drum and put it to the right. But then, like I said, I really do kind of want it to be front and center, so I am going to have this in the middle, and for now at least I'm going to put the piano on the right, and if that starts to sound annoying, I will fix it later on. And now I am going to start changing this stuff around to try and make it a little bit less repetitive. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to delete this and we'll delete that too, and take this and just extend it. So I'm going to, am I on here? Yeah. Control A and Control B. So now it's basically the same as it was before, but now it's all part of one pattern, and I'm going to change this next part around a little bit. I am literally just clicking random notes until I get something that sounds good. So like, I like this part, but then over here is like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, so I'm just kind of experimenting more. Alright, so I think I like that, but then this chord right here definitely needs to go, so I'm going to do the same thing I did here. I'm going to just highlight and then Control B and extend this, and I'm going to change this up a little bit. So like, I can do different chords too, so like, maybe this time it goes like that. I'm gonna like just get rid of a lot of this. Actually, I'm just gonna delete all of this and just do like whole notes like I was doing before to make things a little bit easier. So that's probably good. This is a very, very like PC sounding thing, but I mean, we're using steel drums and Super Mario World pianos, so like, I think that's fine for this. Alright, so we got this, but these kind of go way too high. the way we can remedy that is by doing what is called an inversion, where we take one note off the top of the chord and bring it down an octave, which you can like drag, or you can also just press Control and then down on the arrow key. So it's the same chord, it's a little bit lower now, but it has like the same kind of feel to it. And I can also just bring this whole thing down probably. Well, no, that's kind of low actually. I might bring this one thing up, and I might do the same back here actually. This is actually the same chord as this one, but if you look, this is like a major version as opposed to the minor version, like this really dark sounding thing over here. And this one's all like happy sounding instead. But I'm gonna invert the bottom notes on both of these upward just so everything's a little bit closer together, and let's see how this all sounds together. Could be better, could be worse, maybe. We're making progress though. So this is around the point in making a song like this where I start to be kind of like, and like I don't really know if this is gonna even end up like being decent or if I should just kind of scrap the whole thing now. So I'm going to see what I can do to make this into something I actually like. I know I don't like this right here. Like this chord, just that does not sound very correct in this song. Okay, so it started out as this A flat chord right here, and then like I did some inversions to it, but I'm going to transform it into a, let's see here. A B chord, so this can stay, and then this can stay, and then I need a thing up here. That sounds a lot more in line with like the tone of this song, so I might keep that. This right here, that's very discordant because I kind of changed the chords around here. So like this no longer does the shift where like a B note is okay. Like this right here, this is no longer okay in this part. So actually I'm gonna do the same thing I've been doing where I probably shouldn't have made this a separate thing. I'm just going to go back into here and cut all of that. Go back into this like original thing, get that out of here, and just paste it at the end here. So now it's all like one thing rather than two separated things. And just put that on something else. That might work, I don't know. Okay, so upon careful deliberation, I have decided that this entire second half of the progression right here, both the melody and the chords, are just like, I hate them. I hate everything about that so much. Like, it is just the most like generic, happy, G-rated thing I've ever heard in my life, and I hate it. And I think I'm just gonna have to like redo all of that and figure something else out. And like I said, I'm showing like the creative process from start to end here because like I want you to know that it's okay to really hate something that you make, and like it's okay to just start over and try something else, because a lot of the times what you're gonna make is not gonna be that great, but that is okay. Oh, one thing we can do to make this a little bit better, maybe not the second part, but the first part at least, is, so steel drums tend to do a thing, like, you know, actual steel drums, not like this thing, but they, whenever you hear them being played, they tend to do a thing where they go like, so like this part right here, if I kinda like do some stuff right here, and then I take this and make them smaller, and copy that, and then like another one right there, and then I mess with the velocity so it's kind of like slowly building up. That sounds a little bit more like an actual instrument now. I think it sounds a little bit better like this if I hold Alt left click and make these like full length so they kind of overlap with each other. As opposed to... Actually, I kind of like that a little bit better because if I have it like this, it sounds more like beach music. And believe me, I will make a video on how to make beach music at a later date, but that's not what we're really aiming for right here, or at least that's not what I'm aiming for right here. So if I delete that, it kind of has a cool little sound to it right here. And I think that actually works. I might just keep that. Okay, so I think I've managed to do something with the steel drum melody. I changed things around here a little bit to make this part a little like less overstated. And I changed this. And then this part used to be like right here, because it went into like, it looped back here. Like that, but I moved this out of the way so I could change the velocities here, and I kind of like how this sounds as like the next measure. So I think I'm gonna start like the next section of the song with like something going off these three notes right here. So this is what I turned that into just from messing around on my keyboard a little bit. So I'm just going to take all of this and Control X, create a new pattern, Melody 2, and paste it all here. And then this will come at a later part in the song, say like right here. Okay, so I added a second half to this next melody. I need to talk about slide notes real quick. Basically the way they work is you put a note here. Like this is a bass note, and then you click on this slide icon over here, and then you create another one, usually a smaller one, and if I put this, say, right here, basically the length of the slide note determines how long it takes for the bottom note to reach this pitch. So if this is really small, then like it starts like shifting up right here, and then it stops right here, like right afterwards, and if I make it really long, then it takes the whole time. So basically what I did over here was I just made like, I did the whole time on here. And that makes like a weird looking, or not weird looking, a weird sounding noise right there. If I wanted, I could put it more like this. And that sounds more like a note, but I like how this sounds right here in this melody, as you'll hear in a second. So let me just get rid of that. So yeah, now I just gotta add something underneath that, but I still need to fix the rest of this first. Before I fix the rest of that though, I had an idea, so I cloned the, I right clicked here and clicked clone to make another thing easily, and then like this panning was like a bit off by default, so I just reset it to the center. And I went and chose the harp, and normally that sounds like this. But if you crank the sustain all the way up, and then you put a little attack on so that like, you don't hear that pluck. Oh yeah, I should probably explain what ADSR envelopes actually do. Alright, so just for an example, I'm going to add another 3x oscillator on a blank pattern. And I am going to just like, actually no, I'm going to copy this one because I want to use the same synth. So let me just delete that. So this is our synth from earlier. Now, if we go over here to the envelope settings and we enable this, notice how it's on volume. We can also like do other stuff with it, but right now I'm just showing volume as the simplest example. And we turn this on, it starts behaving differently. And that's because by default the attack on here, once you enable this, is like up a little bit. So if I turn this back down, it plays instantly, but if the further up it is, okay, not that far, the longer it takes to like reach the peak of its volume. and then the hold is how long that volume lasts. Then after that is the decay, which is how long it takes to reach the sustain level. And the sustain level is like that right there is a sustain. So you heard it. Let me lower this. Attack, hold. So like it holds for a second and decays. Oh wait. And then decays and stops right here. And then the release controls how long it takes after I let go of the keys to fade out. So like it took a long time for them to get quiet there, whereas if I have it like this, it's instant. So you can have some like really like rich sounding synth sounds if you mess around with this stuff, like add a little bit of release and then you know, you get the idea. Oh, you know, back to the rest of the video. You can make kind of like a makeshift synth out of that. And it sounds almost like a violin. Not quite, but I'm going to try to make a chord progression using this. Alright, and now I add the extra notes on top of these. Now allow me to introduce you to seventh chords. Basically, if you want a certain sound, you just add an extra note on top of your existing chords following the same pattern. So like, you skip one and the next, skip one and the next, skip one and the next. So right here, for example, it would be C. It's not B because, as we thoroughly established earlier, B is not really a note that we get along with in this chord progression unless under special circumstances. So this one's definitely C. And the next one, I mean, you can kind of just tell that it's going to be this one right here because like you can already see there's a note like right here. So it's obviously not going to be that or like this. And so you can hear the difference. It's a much more like rich sound. It has a lot more texture to it, I guess you would say. I think I've heard other people say that and I'm not really sure why, but I'm just going to repeat them. So you can hear the difference like without them. They sound a lot more plain and basic. And that is why I did not do that for this piano over here, because this is like supposed to sound like kind of really silly and basic. So like if I were to add seventh chord things to them, it would sound a little something like this. And that's just like, it's too fancy for like that right here. Like, that sounds a lot more appropriate for this kind of feeling over here, but I want something that sounds a little bit more like almost inspirational over here. I'm not even sure if I'm going to keep this like synth sound. We have to see, but I am probably definitely going to do something with seventh chords with that kind of chord progression right there. I do want to try to make these sound a little bit less muddy though, because like there's just something like, I don't know, I think the frequencies are a little bit too low, so I'm going to start inverting some of these chords. Basically, you can just move notes around octaves wherever you want. The only exception would be like right here, for example. If I were to move this up an octave, there'd be two semitones right next to each other right here. Which isn't always a bad thing, but that's a bad thing. So in this scenario, I am going to opt not to do that. I don't know, this whole area still doesn't sound that great, but even if I don't end up going with this though, that is something you can do, is just like start inverting things like crazy until you get like a nice sort of shape going on. It helps if like certain notes are like touching each other more. Like if, for example, if I were to do this right here, this might be good because the second to top note on each of these is the same as along with the third to top note, so that makes them blend a little bit more easily. Wait, let me... I know it's a subtle difference, but you just have to see what sounds best. A lot of the times your top note is like generally important because like right here, like I can control whether this next thing goes up or down. And that gives a significantly different kind of feel to it. So you can sort of control where it rises and falls throughout your progression. But this whole, I don't know, man, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with this thing right here. Alright, so I messed around with the inversions on these a little bit more to try and make them sound a little bit better, but more importantly, I'm going to go into the instrument over here and try to make it sound a little bit less static. And I'm going to do that by increasing the attack a little bit. Wait, not that much, but... So now it like builds up a little bit more, and I'm also going to decrease the sustain. So now it like fades out once the attack is reached, and I'm going to add some decay time so it doesn't fade out instantly. Let me lower the attack a little bit so you can still like hear it coming. Alright, so now you can, it has like a triangle shape to it, the volume, you can hear it go up, and then back down. I want that like peak to happen at a specific beat. So it happens like right here right now, which is kind of awkward, so I'm going to try to tweak the attack until it lands like somewhere in the center probably. A little bit less. Of course, now over here is kind of a problem because these notes aren't long enough for that to happen. Oh, I'm also going to add a little bit of release to it so that once the notes end, it like there's still some sounds before the next one has a chance to build up. Alright, but I still don't like how these sound over here because they don't have enough time to actually build up all the way. So I'm going to lower the attack again so that it peaks around the second beat right here. And now I'm going to increase the decay so that these notes like have sound for a longer time. Maybe increase decay and sustain a little bit more because these chords like start to sound a little empty after a while. I think that's decent. Good enough for a tutorial song at least. Oh, I completely missed this note over here. This B should not be... Okay, that fits a little bit better. I wonder if I can just like copy these and just make another piano, paste them here. Okay, what is this gonna sound like if I actually like turn the piano into a synth? I am very curious. Answer you can't. Alright, so I actually really like what I did with the piano here. These are all the exact same chords as the harp synth thing that we made. Whenever you see one out of place like this over here, it's just because I took them and inverted them, but they are all the exact same chords, and like they get a little bit more complex over here, but it's still like all the same thing, just inverted. And I actually did that like double semitones at the same time thing over here. That, what the hell? Why is it... Okay, that was weird. It got turned to a wood block. So like, if you listen to that and the harp synth thing without the steel drum, it actually kind of sounds good. I mean, this thing is like kind of like really like low fidelity, and it almost sounds like detuned or something. Just because I don't think it was supposed to be used like that. So maybe we'll change that later on. But like once you add the steel drum, it's like... I mean, it could be worse, I guess, but like, it's just... No, I am determined to make this work. Okay, I've never made a song before that uses the steel drum as its primary instrument, and I am going to do it on this day, or week, or however long it takes me to make this tutorial.